The voice in your head is your conscience. By Itslivybear. Read by My Lost and Found. Summary. Unless you're Midoriya Izuku, then it's calling for violent destruction of everyone who wronged him in some way, which is usually everyone. Living with it is hard, but he thinks he manages to cope pretty well, and nothing about it will ever go wrong. Following canon just with the addition of some violent voice in his head. So, well, yeah, things will go wrong pretty fast. Slam his head into a desk. Hey Deku, did you do the homework? Oh, what is this? Oops, sorry, my quirk just acted up. Looks like it's destroyed. That's too bad. Izuku mentally sighed. He didn't exactly expect to get a good grade on it anyway, but having fingers shred it really made it a moot point. Break his fingers that he loved so much. Not going to do that. He got out his tape as the rest of the class trickled in around him, ignoring his entire existence. He's here! This time definitely kill him! On cue, there were crackles and pops that got closer to his ears. Shitty Deku! Get out of my way! He was still in his own seat, and his bag was tucked underneath him, but that was a classic. Trip him! He blinked. That was surprisingly tame. Trip him into a sharpened pencil, stabbing his eye out. There it was. No. He deserves it. Izuku easily ignored the voice from long years of practice. The first time he had brought the voice in his head to someone's attention, they had simply told him that everyone had a little voice in their head telling them what to do. It was called your conscience. But he had looked up the word, and the definition was a voice that tells you right from wrong. And this voice definitely did not do that. Spill his secrets, show the world he's unfit to be a teacher, or blackmail him into giving you fair treatment. Usually the voice asked for shows of violence, but it grew with him. It never asked him for something he didn't understand, and it got smarter and more creative the more Izuku learned. So, to some degree, it was still him? Maybe? Notebook 12.4 has his information. You could totally do it and no one would be the wiser. Either he wouldn't believe the threats or he would punish me more. Plus, no one would believe a quirkless person, strong evidence or not. You literally have video evidence, though. Footage can be doctored. They have software to prove it wasn't. They'll see quirkless and not bother. The voice grumbled for a bit but dropped it as class officially started, and Izuku sighed. Reasoning with the voice was usually a fruitless endeavor. Hang him from the roof. Usually because when logic went out, it circled back to violence. Sometimes he tried having actual conversations with the voice, asking if it had a gender or preferred a name or something, but despite its seemingly being semi-sentient, it never replied to those thoughts. So he just called it an it and didn't give it a name. He didn't want to be disrespectful, just in case it wasn't just him and his intrusive thoughts. Close off the room and fill it with poison and let everyone die. He sighed and went back to ignoring it. Take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in your next life. Izuku flinched hard. Not at the words. Well, also at the words. But at the vitriol, spitting anger that took over his mind, practically screaming in it. Kill him! No one fucking says that to us! Tear off his hands, fill him with thermite, flay him alive, blood eagle this bitch! Stop! The voice instantly quieted, but through his pounding headache, he could still feel the simmering rage pulsing in the back of his head. I'm just going to go home. It usually didn't get this bad. Sure, his head was constantly full of new ways to murder, torture, or maim practically everyone he interacted with, but it rarely got to the point of a headache, and it hurt. He trudged to the fish pond and dug out his notebook 13.2. Luckily, it wasn't 13.0. The Master series was harder to replace because it was basically the index for the subversions that came from all the thoughts he needed to get out. Each of the master notebooks had up to 9 sub-notebooks. It wasn't always that way, of course. Originally, he had just kept the notebooks for his quirk analysis, but he encountered more people and the voice kept pushing for violence. He simply couldn't put them all in one notebook. So he has a hero analysis notebook, a villain analysis notebook, a civilian analysis notebook, a blackmail book, a coding book, and a more general knowledge book. Sure, it was annoying that this series of villain book had gotten burned and waterlogged, but it only had a few in it so far, and he knew which fights they were, so he could probably find newscasts about them to jog his memory. Soak his hands in gasoline to help him learn control himself. How would I even do that without him noticing? If it was douse him in gasoline, sure, that just takes a well-timed throw, but soaking? Sneak into his house at night and tie bags full of gasoline around his hands. The smell would wake him up. Hence the bags. Or gloves soaked in it. Actually, just force gloves on him. Make sure they can't come off. That would limit the use of his quirk if he didn't want to hurt himself, but making it so they can't come off would be hard. They need to be skin tight, seamless, cut proof, not to mention lock around the wrists. Should have looked into support gear more. Too little, too late. I'll add it to the rotation, though. Maybe in place of coding this time? They work well together. If the voice had been about to respond, it was cut off by the gurgle of the sewers and the scraping of the metal cover being moved, and Izuku was instantly on alert, eyes widening as a mass of dark sludge crawled up. Things shifted around, and 2 eyes and a wide set of teeth grinned at him. Ah, a meat suit. Perfect. I need a place to hide. You're my hero, kid. Now hold still. It'll be over in about 45 seconds. And he was swarmed. His headache was getting stronger, both from the choking lack of air and the violent screaming in his head. There was a flash of color and sound just as his vision faded, and before he knew it, he was being gently slapped awake and looking up into a face he saw all the time from how much it covered his walls. Was he in his room? No, wait, that was actually All Might Holy! Ah, good, you're awake, the number 1 hero said jovially. I was worried for a second there, young man. His notebook. He needed to get out 13.1. And I've already autographed your notebook. He autographed the villain one. Oh well, hopefully he hadn't seen too much and thought he was weird or interested in villainy or something. Speaking of villainy, though, where had the sludge person gone? He watched All Might tuck 2 large soda bottles into his pants pockets and saw a floating eyeball in one of them, and had a moment to think, really? He put the villain in soda bottles. Before he watched All Might tense to lift off, and he darted forward without thinking, latching on. Now I love my fans, but this is just too much. Let go! He felt the wind pressure pull his lips back, but managed to squeak out, If I let go, I'll die! All Might seemed to realize this as well, and stopped trying to shake him off before he landed on a roof, and Izuku gratefully collapsed onto solid ground, even as the pro hero began to lecture him on his recklessness, and professing that he really must be going. Wait, do you think someone without a quirk can be a hero? He stumbled a little over the words, but he had managed to curb his muttering habits when they mostly turned into replying to the voice, and so he just managed to get out the entire, short, powerfully important question before clamping his mouth shut and swallowing heavily around the taste of slime still in his mouth. There was a puff of smoke, and he barely held back a scream as in the place of All Might there was a sickly, skeletal-looking man. What the? I can assure you, the man stressed, I am All Might. I got in a big fight 6 years ago that took out a lung and most of my stomach. So I look like this sometimes. I ask that you keep this a secret, young man. This is very important. He nodded numbly as he stared at the huge, sprawling scar that took up his idol's entire left side, before the man let his shirt fall with a nod. As for your question, I cannot in good conscience say that you can. Not when I had a quirk and still got this hurt. I admire your spirit, but heroics is simply too dangerous for you. You must be more realistic with your options. It's plenty noble to be a police officer or firefighter, or a paramedic. So, no, I do not believe you can be a hero without a quirk. With that, Izuku was left almost completely numb, and he barely noticed as All Might left the rooftop.
Expose him as a fraud.
No. He had a point. If he got hurt, even with his super strong quirk, what could I do?
Use your notebooks?
To do what? Ramble at them?
So now you give up? After everything, you give up instead of taking what you deserve?
He was saved from having to respond by the sound of a deafening explosion 2 blocks away, and his head whipped around to the slowly rising pillar of smoke. There was a distant sound of screaming, and he couldn't help but be drawn to the prospect of a villain fight, even if he had just gotten out of one himself. He pushed his thoughts away and booked it down the stairs from the roof to the ground, and then he sped over a few streets, weaving his way to the front of the cloud. His heart dropped into his feet. Not only was it the slime villain from before, he had gotten free? How? Slipped out of All Might's pockets? Might have been when Izuku latched on. Pockets were on the side of his legs, which is the general location of his koala impression. But worse, he had a victim that he was puppeteering around, forcing them to use their explosion quirk. Oh no. For once, his voice wasn't calling for Kacchan's death and disfigurement. It seemed almost shocked into submission.
It's useless. My quirk can't do anything. We'll have to wait for someone more suited.
His eyes zeroed in on Death Arms, standing at the side of the crowd with obvious frustration on his face, but not moving to do anything. Why wasn't he doing anything? In fact, not a single hero on the scene was doing anything, just lamenting about how they weren't fit for this, and standing there while Kacchan was drowning.
Kill them?
Maybe later, he murmured, locking eyes with his childhood friend turned bully. Red eyes stared back at him with pleading desperation, and in that moment, he moved.
Go for the eyes.
He swung his backpack, aiming right for where the sledge villain's eyes were, and watched with satisfaction as he hit his mark, and the villain recoiled before he dug his hands into the texture they had not quite forgotten, and pulled. Kacchan took a great gasping breath of air, and coughed and spat up the mucus before turning to him to yell. But he never got the chance.
Smash!
Izuku trudged home, exhausted from being yelled at by heroes and Kacchan, when All Might landed in front of him and immediately deflated, coughing up blood. Are you okay? He waved him off.
Side effect of my wound. Listen, young man. What's your name?
Midoriya Izuku?
Young Midoriya.
He was definitely processing what All Might was saying, talking about true qualifications of a hero and how he moved without thinking, but he pulled up short at his last phrase.
You are worthy to inherit my quirk.
It took a few minutes to actually figure out what he meant and to promise to keep yet another national secret. But by the end, he was getting a quirk and hero training out of it. So suddenly, his goal was a lot more attainable. He wasn't giving up, even if he had gotten close. As he walked home, he ignored the pounding headache to smile. Still want to expose All Might or enact violence on him?
He gets a pass for now.
Izuku laughed out loud and was glad the street was relatively empty so no one would think he was crazy. Or, well, more crazy than usual.
Kill him!
I thought we were past this. He sighed to himself as the other examinee finished berating him for mumbling to himself about the robots, and then immediately turning around to reprimand present Mike for not talking about all 4 robots on the pamphlet.
He's disrespecting us. Plus, you weren't even being that loud.
Comforting that my own personal demon that lives in my head didn't think I was being too loud. He didn't respond to that, but he got the distinct impression of rolling eyes and let himself give a tiny smile as it relaxed some of his nerves. Used to responding to the attention of his voice on the fly, it seemed to know when people were near before he did, if he knew them well enough. As soon as Present Mike called for them to start, he was off like a bullet, heart pounding with adrenaline and nerves at the perceived threat. It was only when he realized no one else was running that he flushed and tried his very best to ignore the cackling in his head. Well, he was sorry that he trusted the voice, then. The support courses he had taken and looked into were really not enough to do more than tell him he was really out of his league fighting robots without a quirk, because he still didn't know how One for All was supposed to work since he had just gotten it that morning and All Might's advice was not super helpful. He managed a few points, sure, but mostly running around like a headless chicken and trying to stop people from getting injured due to their own recklessness, or that of others. Quirks were cool, yes, and he would have a lot more new entries in Series 14 of his notebooks, but people didn't seem to realize that collateral damage was a thing. He made it all the way until the 0-pointer was released, and panicked at the fact that there were still maybe 2 minutes left and he had gotten a grand total of 5 points. But he heard a cry and stilled, looking to the path of the behemoth robot. The girl, the one that even the voice hadn't said anything mean about, who had saved him from falling, was trapped under rubble from the collapsed buildings, directly in the path of the 0-pointer.
Kill it! Blow it up! Punch it!
So that's what he did. Not his best move, he lamented as he started falling back to earth with 3 whole limbs turned to fine paste. But the rush of power had felt nice, and the 0-pointer was no longer a threat. The girl smacked him and he felt his fall slow, and then before he stopped she murmured a soft, "Release," and he fell the rest of the way. Not being a pancake on the pavement was severely underrated in his opinion, and he made sure to thank her profusely before blacking right out. Recovery girls scolding him didn't even get threats of violence, which Izuku figured was fair. He had done that to himself, sort of.
Can't do that again.
The saving thing or the breaking all my limbs thing? Because if it's the saving thing, I'm gonna have to remind you this test was to become a hero student, and that's the whole deal.
Limbs.
He sighed. Yeah, I need to work on that.
Kill him.
He hasn't even done anything yet.
He's a teacher. Kill him. Strangle him with his scarf.
Wait, doesn't that look familiar?
Don't kill him.
Wait, I haven't figured it out yet. Who? Oh, Eraserhead! That is so cool.
He can stay. For now.
Glad he has your approval. Bakugo, what was your ball throw in middle school?
67 meters.
Do it again, but with your quirk.
Die! Gasoline gloves.
He didn't even dignify that with a response. Besides, he was having trouble with the wrist-locking mechanism.
Huh? What the hell are you doing here, Deku? Please let me kill him.
You don't have a body and haven't been able to puppet mine yet. We're going to keep it that way, so Midoriya Izuku doesn't become a mass murderer. Aizawa glared at Kacchan and, in a rare moment of a teacher actually disciplining him, threatened him if he attacked another student again.
Score!
He went up to throw the ball. feeling semi-confident in his other tests and prepared to use one for all. Still hadn't figured out how to stop breaking bones, but this was the last test and he could afford to be down an arm.
Find a way to do it without breaking your arm or you're expelled.
Or not?
Injuring another student means detention. Injuring yourself means expulsion. I take it back. We're killing him.
Nah, he has a point. I can't be a liability on the field. Can't afford to break my arm every time I want to use my power. On the other hand... Well, not literally on the other hand. He grimaced as his finger pulsed, completely broken in many places. But he grinned and clenched his finger, ignoring the grinding bones. I can still move, Sensei. He wasn't expelled, and he let out a private sigh of relief.
Thin ice.
He'd take it.
He won't die if he dodges. But you will still if I ever get hands. Something is wrong.
What?
Something is wrong.
Heard you the first time. Whoa, is this like the entrance exam? Has the training already started? Aizawa's eyes flashed at the dark portal spewing out people.
Those are real villains. 13, get the students to safety.
Wait, Izuku blurted out, staring between the villains pouring into the central plaza and his teacher. Your fighting style isn't suited to combat against multiple foes in broad daylight. Aizawa smirked, and a note of surprise entered his eyes, but he cut himself off.
No hero is a one-trick pony, Midoriya. Get out of the way. Stay safe.
With that, he flung himself down the stairs and into the fray. Not 30 seconds later, after a panic shuffle for the door, did the portal reform into a person, blocking off their escape.
I'm afraid I can't let you do that,
he said smoothly.
I am Kurogiri, and we are the League of Villains. We are originally here to kill All Might, but it seems he isn't here, so...
Kachan and Kirishima rushed him, and he easily sent them headfirst into a portal to who knows where, and effortlessly continued.
So I suppose we will have to scatter you instead. I see some of the UA golden eggs have already got a head start on that. Very eager, and rambunctious they were. Goodbye, and may you rest in peace.
Dark purple took over his vision as the class screamed around him, and he was falling through the air.
Oh, definitely kill that guy.
He couldn't find it in his heart to disagree.
When I said we should kill Eraserhead, I didn't mean anyone else could kill him. Kill that guy.
The villain leader covered in hands commanding the hulking beast that has multiple quirks? Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, but you're gonna fight?
Duh.
Okay, fuck that guy.
We weren't even caught in Todoroki's ice. Why are you mad at him now?
Principle.
You have none of those.
If I had a tongue, I would be sticking it out at you right now. Actually, can I have your tongue for a brief moment to really get my feeling across?
No.
Oh, wow. Really? Fuck that guy.
Yeah, all right. Freezing the robots was a dick move.
You should introduce him to blunt force trauma to the head.
No!
So, no blunt force trauma to the head, huh?
How was I supposed to know that would be my plan? Or that I would smack him with the metal plate?
Kill Midnight.
Still not killing my pro hero teachers. Besides, it's a game. As long as I get a good team, we'll be fine.
Kill Endeavor. Burn him to death and stew his intestines in a nice gazpacho.
Ew! No! What a waste of a perfectly good soup.
That's not a no on killing him, though.
14.4.
Acceptable.
I'm surprised you're not telling me to kill Shinso.
He can't brainwash you. Good, because I think he'd be an awesome hero and I don't need you calling for his blood all hours of the day.
Hey, Midoriya?
He looked up and beamed. Hi, Shinso. What's up?
Why did your mind swear at me and give me graphic images of my death? I mean, it's cool that your brain did anything. Usually that doesn't happen, but...
Izuku's expression froze.
You met it. You know how everyone has, a conscience? Yeah, mine is very violent. Sorry.
Shinso just frowned.
No, you misunderstand. Most people don't have bonus content in their heads. Yours actually spoke. Like, yeah, you got brainwashed, but whatever it is definitely didn't. Your quirk is super strength.
He blinked.
Yeah. Yeah, no. That voice in your head, that's definitely a quirk. Either that or you have DID, dissociative identity disorder.
Izuku blinked.
Huh. That's, Can we rain check that until after the festival? Super down to help you with your quirk. It's really cool, but I might have just had my world turned on its head.
Shinso looked just as lost.
Yeah. Don't need to work on my quirk, though. I know it's creepy.
Shinso, he interrupted, is your quirk a voice in your head that details all the ways to pull out people's teeth and in which order it should be done based on how much it dislikes them?
All right, fair point. Maybe you got super strength from denying all those urges to become a serial killer, he joked. But damn, that sounds kind of like a pain. Okay, well, good luck for the rest of the festival, I guess.
He smiled weakly. Thanks, see you later.
Huh.
What do you mean, huh?
Am I a quirk? Or I have DID. I'm gonna look that up in between matches.
Nah, that requires trauma.
Ah, yes. My life is completely free of trauma.
From before I showed up.
Huh. Okay, you might be a quirk. Wait, but how would One for All have affected you then?
I could just be you, but meaner and more prone to violence.
Is it that you're having actual conversations now?
No, I could always do that. Just didn't want to.
Oh, fuck you.
Hey! Anyway, we're maiming Todoroki in our fight.
What? Why?
Because.
We are not maiming Todoroki.
Better hope One for All didn't let me take the wheel then.
Oh my god.
So you decided to not maim Todoroki by maiming yourself?
Ugh. He groaned. And I just woke up. Give it a rest.
Recovery Girl tutted.
You should still be resting, it's true, but you youngins bounce back quickly. Unfortunately for you, this isn't something you can bounce back from. Of all the reckless things to do, you had to break and re-break your fingers past the point of no return. Sonny, I had to do surgery. Your fingers on your right hand will be crooked for the rest of your life.
He weakly raised the hand in question and stared impassively at his gnarled, scarred fingers before he smiled. I promise I won't do it again, but I can't say it wasn't worth it. She huffed and rolled her eyes, walking off.
You really need to get a handle on this quirk.
Don't worry, we'll get right on that.
Kill? Nah, never mind. He's funny.
Oh, so you finally found someone who you don't want to murder, and it's Gran Torino?
His prank was really funny.
I thought you had taken over and killed him. I was terrified.
Still can't do that yet, but also I wouldn't kill a random person. You know who the first to die would be. You're not killing Kachan. Never named names. Okay, we can kill this one, right?
Please don't mean Ida.
No, I mean Stain. Ida is literally maimed a little. He's learned his lesson. Maybe. Maybe giving him a little kick to make sure it really sinks in that revenge is never their option.
Did you really just say that?
You're right. Let me amend. Revenge is never an option unless you're us. Then it's a requirement.
I hate you sometimes.
I am your rage, Zooks. Let me have this. I take back every nice thing I ever said about Eraserhead. Stop yelling. It's not that bad. And also, you never said anything nice about him. It's fucking him against All Might. And we both know he's not gonna work with us.
And it was right. Izuku tried to say that they just needed a plan, and Kachan backhanded him with his heavy gauntlet. Izuku could taste copper, and he just checked out. When he came back to reality, he was already in the nurse's tent with aches and pains and being congratulated by All Might for passing, while Recovery Girl was beating the pro hero with her cane for going overboard. He ignored that he couldn't remember his finals at all, and resolved to really talk to Shinso soon. It was probably just dissociation, right?
Oh, this fucker! Hands off, asshole!
Izuku tried his very best to ignore the vitriol while he tried to stop Shigaraki from turning him into dust.
Not mad at Pixie Bob? It was funny. And she's a cat. That's just what cats do. Knock things off.
Sometimes I really don't understand you.
Can we kill this one?
Izuku snarled.
Yes.
Muscular never stood a chance, and he left him buried in the mountain, broken arms throbbing and Koda sobbing into his shoulder.
I'm not leaving him. Of course you aren't.
And you're not opposed?
I exist with you. My opinions are irrelevant.
That's not... No.
Yes, if you really want my feelings on this, they're complicated. But it boils down to no one kills him but me. Get his ass back so I can kill it later.
Izuku suppressed a sigh. He'd take it.
Don't touch him! Don't get close! He's dangerous! Don't!
They got Kachan back, and Izuku had a pounding headache and a very quiet head.
I wonder if he can still use permeation if his arms are broken.
I see no reason why not, he mused. But it might make him lose focus, I guess. D&D concentration rules.
Sure, let's test it.
I'm not maiming my upperclassmen. Plus, I don't even know if I can.
You could.
Whatever. Oh, shit!
Windy asshole.
Yeah, he got in a fight with Todoroki. Not a reason to kill him.
You can't see, but I'd be pouting. You know, if I had a mouth. Oh, wait, you're pouting. I'm gonna count that. You should remove his eyes, and his hands, and his brain. Lobotomize Sir Night-Eye. Bonus points if you can get the entire optical nerve intact.
He was mean, but I sort of understand.
Are you really justifying his treatment of you?
No, not justifying. I get it. And while, yeah, it's unprofessional, and a part of me regrets taking this internship, I'm learning a lot, and it isn't enough to justify a lobotomy.
Yet.
Oh my god, shut up. Something small slammed into his legs, and his head was quiet as he looked down at the little girl with wide eyes before leaning down and wrapping his arms loosely around her. Hi, are you okay? I'm a hero in training. My name is Deku. What's your name?
Eri.
He smiled softly, even if she couldn't see it.
trembling with her head buried in his chest as it was. It was hard to smile. She wasn't wearing shoes, and had just run out of the alley. Her dress was more like a hospital gown, and her arms and legs covered in bandages. "Ah, you found my daughter. Thank you. Let's go, Eri. We wouldn't want to bother these heroes now, would we?" The man in the plague mask tugged at his gloves, and within the same moment Izuku's arms were empty. He could only watch as she went back to him, and they disappeared. "Something is off." He nodded absent-mindedly to himself. "Bullets. Overhaul was using her to make bullets, breaking her down again and again and again."
"Kill?"
He clenched his fists and didn't reply.
"This is all your fault, Eri! If you come back, I can stop."
She ran back into the room, and Izuku tried his best to stop her, but soon enough she was back in Overhaul's arms, and Izuku took a deep breath. "I need a moment. Want to take over?" The people around him looked at him funny, but the voice purred within his mind.
"I thought you'd never ask."
Aizawa immediately noticed the shift in his student. Nothing changed in his appearance, but his stance shifted, and there was an immediate oppressive air that swamped the destroyed space. He, or whatever passed as his student now, curled and uncurled his fingers and grinned up at Overhaul. It was not a nice smile.
"Well, well, well," he purred. "Overhaul, it's nice to be speaking face to face. I've been given blanket permission to tear you limb from limb."
And then he moved. As soon as Overhaul was in custody, and everyone injured was in the hospital, this included Overhaul, they would be surprised if he could ever use his hands again. Aizawa wrapped Midoriya up in his capture scarf and dragged him forward, eyes blazing red. His student gave a crooked grin.
"Interesting. I thought for sure that would snap him back."
"Who," he growled, "are you, and what have you done with my student? I would say Toga, but we saw her after the fact, and I know my quirk works on her. So who the hell are you, and why isn't my quirk working?"
He shrugged as best he could, wrapped up as tight as he was.
"Sure you want to do this in the middle of the street? I may have mitigated the damage, but I'm almost certain standard procedure is to send combatants to the hospital if they took as many hits as I did, even if Eri got rid of them."
"Answer the damn question before I send you right to Tartarus after Overhaul," he sneered, and it looked so wrong on his student's face that he reflexively tightened the scarf and flared his quirk again.
"Zooks is fine," he grumbled. "He's just busy screaming into the void. He's not used to being the one that gets pissed off, so he let me take over. It's new."
"And who exactly are you?"
He grinned. "It's weird. I never really had a name before, since I could only talk to one person. Let's see. He tried giving me a name a few times. What did he say? Right, the one Inko might have named him. Call me
Yamiko."
Aizawa grimaced. "Fine. I'm escorting you to the hospital where you will be kept under strict observation until my student is back."
Yamiko shrugged.
"That's assuming he can't take back control whenever he feels like it. Like I said, he can't come to the phone right now. He's busy. All you get is little old me. Oh, by the way, tell Shinso I said hi."
Aizawa resolutely did not look at the person using his student's face. He was still Yamiko 2 hours later, once all the checks had been run, and he was cleared from the hospital, and Aizawa practically dragged Tsukuchi into the room. The boy grinned.
"Ah, really? Just for me? Flatterer!"
Sukuuchi also looked a little shell-shocked at the imposter, and Aizawa hadn't even wanted to be the one to tell Yagi about his kid when he was already stressing about his old sidekick's horrific injury. Detective Sukuuchi, I'm recording this conversation and have to inform you that my quirk is lie detector. Let's start with the basics. What's your name?
Yamiko. It, I've decided.
True. Why are you in the body of Midoriya Izuku?
Because I always am.
True. Why are you currently in control of the body of Midoriya Izuku?
He let me.
True. Why did he let you?
He was pissed and didn't know how to deal with it, I think. I mean, come on. You must have noticed that he takes everything with a smile. Pretty much.
True. What was he mad about?
A lot of things, but mostly Eri and Overhaul. As soon as we found out what he was doing to her, he was a ticking time bomb. He didn't say no when I said we should kill him.
They both tensed, and Aizawa put his hand on his capture scarf. Yamiko rolled his eyes.
Relax. I may be largely immoral, but Zooks is mine, and I wouldn't do something to hurt him. Everyone else? Yes. I definitely paid attention when we were going over the legalities of certain actions to see what I could and couldn't get away with if I ever had hands.
True. How long have you been in control?
3 hours-ish.
True. Have you ever been in control before?
Yes.
Aizawa grimaced. When? Yamiko tilted his head, expression serious.
Final exams. That's the first time. When we fought Muscular, we were both out, since our goals and thoughts aligned.
True. Sort of. Elaborate on the Muscular thing.
He was pissed. Muscular was threatening the squirt. Zooks didn't like that. Muscular reminded me of the worst sort of bullies. I didn't like that. So, for once, we were in perfect agreement. If Zooks hadn't needed a breather, that probably would have happened here too. Can't say I minded, though.
I watched your final. Aizawa narrowed his eyes, and I didn't see anything abnormal. When did you take over?
Yamiko pursed his lips. I've figured out 2 ways to take control, he said instead of answering. One is, as you see here, when our goals align and he lets me out. The second is when he's awake but not mentally there.
Dissociation.
He nodded. In the exams, when Bakugo backhanded him, he checked out, and I found myself in the driver's seat. Very disconcerting when I've never had a body before, I can assure you. You probably saw it as him shaking off the blow, but that's when I stepped in. And sure, I wanted to kill the bastard for the hell he's put Zooks through, but we had an exam to pass, so...
Aizawa slowly forced himself to relax as Sukuuchi went on to the other questions. Are you a villain or working with villains?
Nope.
Do you have malicious intentions towards Midoriya Izuku?
That would be dumb. No.
Do you have malicious intentions towards anyone in UA?
Yeah, that's like my whole deal.
Immediately, tense again. Yamiko rolled his eyes.
For the longest time, my only dialogue with Zooks was ways to maim or murder other people around him that were dicks. Drove him up the wall. If it makes you feel better, I'm never going to actually act on it unless I get explicit permission. And even then, only if it can't be traced back to Zooks in a legal fashion.
True. That isn't comforting.
He shrugged. Never gonna stop hating people. Take what you can get. Might want to wrap up your questions. The screaming is dying down.
Aizawa was startled at the idea that his student would soon be returned to him, and he could question him as well, and Sukuuchi hurried on. Are you the UA traitor?
Nah, but I have a few guesses.
Who? He blinked a few times, and Aizawa knew that Midoriya was back instantly when he paled.
"Oh no!" he whined. "Oh no!"
Aizawa raised an eyebrow.
"Welcome back, problem child," he drawled. "So, Yamiko."
He put his head in his hands. He bastardized the name. It was just supposed to be Mimiko. Not that he ever had a name before this. I didn't want to assign him one just in case he didn't like it. Did he say something weird? I was checked out.
"Yeah, we got that."
Aizawa sighed.
"Why don't you tell us about your friend? Start from the beginning."
He swallowed and smiled weakly. As long as I've been able to remember, since I've been able to think, I've had this voice in my head. People always said it was my conscience, but I figured that couldn't be true. Despite the problem child letting his close friends know about the situation, Yamiko was formally introduced to the class when Bakugo blew up on Midoriya one day for no reason, and he sighed and said, "No, not dealing with this. Your turn." And he shifted. The more animal of their classmates felt a sense of unease overcome them, and everyone took a step back when Midoriya's face erupted into a grin. "Well, you've done fucked up, Blasty. Zook's really just handed you over to me on a silver platter, didn't he?"
"Who the hell are you, and where the fuck did Deku go?"
He tilted his head. "Sorry," he said, voice all poisoned honey. "Izuku can't come to the phone right now. You get Yamiko, his personal demon." Shinso sighed. "Oh, that explains a few things."
"Beat his ass, Yami."
Yamiko grinned in a mockery of the smile that usually was seen on the same face, and Aizawa merely shrugged.
"Okay, on to sparring. Yamiko, you're paired with Bakugo."
"Oh, good! You're enabling me."
"If you send him to Recovery Girl, you get detention."
He cocked his head. "Don't you mean Zooks gets detention?"
"No, just because you generally share a brain doesn't mean he gets punished for your actions."
Yamiko slowly lit up in a grin. "So, I sent him to Recovery and I get a detention? How many pieces does she need him to be in?" Aizawa sighed as the class erupted into confused shock. He was not paid enough to deal with a headspace monster. Shinso sidled up to the demon. "So, did you figure out if it was a quirk or not?" "Nah. Aizawa tried erasing it, but I didn't snap back. If it's a quirk, it's a mutation. And DID is off the table because I've been around since he was born. Not that I remember that." Shinso stared at him. "Then, what are you?" It shrugged. "I'm his conscience." Before you leave, I have a quick blooper for you, courtesy of my cat Willow. "Baby, what are you eating?" "Are you eating plastic? Please don't eat plastic, or are you just eating plants? As long as it's the cat grass, that's okay, but please don't eat my other plants. Don't follow in Daisy's footsteps. I will be very disappointed in you." Okay, you finished eating whatever it was. Okay.